Hello. Sorry I haven't uploaded in so long. Sorry as well that I'm doing so now under such melancholy circumstances. As you'll deduce from the title, as you'll know already, unless you've been living under a rock, Charlie Kirk, the conservative commentator in America, was shot dead 3 days ago at the time of my filming this. I never met the man. He's not even in the same country as I, although I know he did think and speak quite highly and fondly of my country in a way that I wish commentators and pundits of a supposedly conservative bent around his age, or frankly older, would. The only ones who do are people like Konstantin Kisin, who doesn't even identify as a conservative of any kind. He just happens to have come from the Soviet Union, and it's because of that he and others like him recognise what it means to see freedom go away. And now we're giving our freedoms away voluntarily. But that's for another video. I thought about making a video at the time, actually not just at the exact time when I read about it, because he was still just about alive at then. It was between midnight and 2 o'clock in the morning, my time. But even that shook me up. And I've never been more grateful that I'm not on Twitter or X or whatever it is we're supposed to call it now, because I understand the video of his assassination went viral and was very graphic. What I did see was the video a day or two before when that black man on the train, also in the United States, stabbed a woman, young woman, in the neck. I wish I hadn't seen it, but I did. It transpired that this woman was in fact a Ukrainian refugee. She fled a war zone only to lose her life on the other side of the world. To a, well, either drunk, stoned or mad, we don't know yet. And so to have that happen, to hear of the Charlie Kirk incident and then have the anniversary of September the 11th, just a few days apart, and a total of 67 British people also died in those towers, and a further 16 with connections with the UK, either through dual citizenship or working visas, also perished there. To have, as I say, those three tragedies happen in such close proximity together, and to have seen one of them as well online, is quite a lot to process, to say the least. As a matter of fact, before turning this on, I was watching a YouTuber that I don't even like. I don't know why I was on his channel, and he did actually show a clip of Charlie Kirk being shot, even with the censored version over the head and neck. I wish I had not seen that. And the strange thing about it is that just reading about it made me feel empty, and it made me feel strangely vulnerable, despite being on the other side of the world. This exact vulnerability, of course, is how the assassin wants us to feel. They want us to be intimidated into silence. As ruthless as it is to say, we almost expect it to happen of politicians. We saw it with Donald Trump, obviously. We shouldn't normalise that. And two politicians in the past 5-6 years or so in my country, one at the hands of a neo-Nazi, the other at the hand of a jihadi, also perished. Years back in the 80s, IRA or Irish Republican terrorists used to bomb politicians. So we shouldn't normalise violence against politicians, but it does happen and we know it. Likewise with celebrities and so on. So we almost expect it of them, and with American-style school shootings as well, it seems to happen so often we grow desensitized. This struck me in a different way, in a way that I cannot fully define or explain. If I were forced to an explanation, or serious explanations of some kind, I'd say it's, well, firstly because on a purely selfish level, I'm outspoken, nothing like as famous as Charlie Kirk, but outspoken about some and not all of the same issues, though frankly this goes beyond whether I agreed or disagreed, and also whether you or I or anyone else liked or disliked him. I'll explain why later. I also used to speak at universities, and so it, there's always a bit of, oh, what if I'd been there, thing going on in the back of your head in that situation. Also, the fact that it happened at a university of Utah, There are young people there, and so there's an almost sinister, invasive feel to somebody just coming in there and shooting someone, close to how it is when you hear about a school shooting for the first time, which in my case would have happened not in America, but in my country. It would have been the Dunblane massacre when I was very young. So as I said, it happened in the state of Utah. That's where the Mormons live. Even I know that. It's not a place that's best known for gun violence. So something's horrendously wrong here on a purely human level. Of course, other people that get shot have wives and children, but it looked real. It didn't look as though they were posing for the camera, so there's a kind of relatability there. There are some reports that say that his wife and children were actually in attendance at the time. They'll be traumatized, of course, which just intensifies the evil of it. And also, he's not my age, actually. I didn't realise till I looked that he was quite a bit younger. And so just be taken away like that. Also, the fact that he was there to engage in political debate and somebody just shot him for that reason. It's opinion. Somebody's shooting someone else, another human being, for their opinion. And whoever you are, whatever your beliefs, if you can shoot someone for a belief, and if none of us care, in a sense, nobody's safe. Toured this country a few times. There was the Turning Point UK, which is the British equivalent of Turning Point USA. I think I saw the live stream event of that, and he came to that. And Oxford Union. So he's been here a few times. So I knew of him, but had never been with him in person. And I was going, as I said, to make a video early on, shortly after I heard that he died. I wanted to wait until there was a suspect, but more on that later. It really puts things into perspective. In just these past 3 days, before the poor fellow had even been buried, before the blood in his veins had even turned cold, the circling vultures began to close in, with tearing beaks and vicious claws and total deafness to sound and reason after they'd flown up so high after having eaten their fill and fouled all over the place. Manufactured misquotes, half-quotes, false quotes coming up about what he may or may not have said over the years. People claiming that he thought that black women had smaller brains, which he never said, or that he thought that gay people should be stoned to death, which is also untrue, or that he thought that people don't deserve empathy. He didn't like the term empathy, but then he went on to say that he preferred the term sympathy, because empathy suggests that you actually know how another person feels. It's always the same. And some idiot appeared on Good Morning Britain a day or two ago, comparing him to David Duke. Now, David Duke, he described David Duke rightly as a former Klansman, which he was. He now goes around putting a respectable face on ethnic segregation and on Holocaust denial. None of this is true of Charlie Kirk, but he said it anyway, either because he doesn't know the difference or because he's banking on most audience members not realising. There's the Congresswoman, Ilhan Omar, that David Duke, the real one, described as the most important member of Congress because of her race-baiting comments, casting aspersions on his name. The Guardian came out with, in just these past few days, it's jumped from calling him a conservative commentator to a right-wing commentator to a far-right commentator. Surprise me, Guardian, and call him a member of the alt-right manosphere, or some other expression that nobody has used since 2016. I recently came from Facebook debating somebody that called him a Nazi, when it was pointed out to her that, he had a wife and children that had lost a husband, father. She said of his wife, boo-hoo to the Nazi wife. And then when I proved that his beliefs didn't align with Nazism, she described him instead as a terrorist. Do people actually know the meaning of words anymore? People not realise that him being shot was the act of terrorism, the real act of fascism. Other people, the pink-haired weirdos online, have been justifying this or saying he deserved it. There was one saying Did you think that the revolution was going to be bloodless? Yeah, if it is a communist or anarchist revolution, trust me, you lot and your 79 pronouns will be the first to be eaten up by that revolution or its aftermath, as those agitating for such things inevitably are. And you just think, how did we get here? Why are we here? Why are we debating whether it was acceptable or deserved for somebody to lose their son, husband, father? Why? I mean, if we're at the stage where those women on The View, that rather silly American program, didn't misquote him, didn't say he deserved it, didn't behave in these disgusting ways, if they can see how evil and wrong this is, and you can't, there's something wrong with you, not Charlie Kirk. And I think one of the reasons that the people on The View and many others, political opponents, including, by the way, the person he was debating at the time, and in a final act of tragic irony, he was actually debating gun violence at the point where he was shot. But I think the reason so many on the sort of liberal left side of things are horrified by this is because they realise how, with the slightest different aligning of the planets, it could have been one of them. You know, the person with whom he was engaging at the time has come out and said it was horrific. And I can't believe people that share my politics are actually celebrating the death of this man. Suppose that gunman, the assassin, really had been of Nazi persuasion. It could have been a liberal or a left-winger that got shot. Or it could have been someone with identical politics as the assassin and misfired. Could have been. One of the things that Charlie Kirk used to do is invite people who disagree with him to come and talk, to come to the front and engage. It could have been any one of them that was hit. When Trump was shot at, it got him in the ear, famously, but it also hit a member of the audience. When J.F. Kennedy was shot, it went straight through him and shot Governor Connolly in front of him. Borders on the miraculous that nobody else was hurt in that, other than mentally scarred by what they all saw. So it could have been any one of them, and that, I think, is why it impacts so many people. And you have to go through some real mental gymnastics, some real dehumanization in your mind to think that he deserved that, or some real ignorance. Let's be grateful and say that's what it is, that they never actually read a single word of what he said. They never read below a headline that reported what he may or may not have said. Whatever. I didn't do it by design. My very last video, I did it almost a year ago, called Base Bin Laden. It's somewhat light-hearted, not very, but it's my attempt to seem light-hearted in the face of real disturbance. People say things like Osama bin Laden had a point. What? Am I living on the same planet as these people? I'm old enough to remember as well people dancing about in the streets in the Arab world, and what, we're doing the same thing here, are we? You know, that was years back, and then fast forward, and when Israel is attacked on 7th of October, same sort of thing. People dancing about in the streets throughout the Arab world, and the same sort of leftists and liberals trying to justify it. And they're the same cockroaches coming out of the woodwork each time. And they have the same faces and the same names, and they make the same noises. Now, regarding Israel, what I just said earlier, there have been a number of conspiracy theories by Islamist types and others that aren't Islamists or even Muslim, but just looking to stir up trouble, suggesting that Israel did this. Yeah, Israel shot Charlie Kirk. That really makes sense, doesn't it, considering he supported Israel? It really would be in their interest, considering he was one of the most pro-Israel non-Jews of his generation in the United States. We do have a suspect now. I don't think I want to utter his name. Now, it seems that it was a 22-year-old fellow. He was a straight-A student, hard worker, bit of a loner, had friends, great things were expected of him at university, had everything to gain by staying on the right side of the law, and everything to lose by breaking it. Unless, of course, something or someone persuaded him otherwise. There were some reports that falsely said he was the son of either a sheriff or deputy sheriff. This is not true. What is odd is that his family had more in common, politically and socially, with Charlie Kirk himself. They were conservative Republicans, they were pro-gun, they were Christians, they had so many of the same views. The father was a construction worker, I think. He did exactly the right thing on recognising the person of interest in the photograph and turned him in. Eventually, the suspect admitted that he did do it. The only thing now is why? How did we get where we are? And it seems that he was radicalised either online or at his university. I mean, it would fit if he had parents that were in favour of guns, that he was studying engineering. That's the odd thing. Engineering is not a political subject at university, typically. But as an engineer, he'd know how to put together a gun and dismantle it, so it makes sense. And he also carved loads of strange far-left slogans on the casing of the bullets. Just really bizarre. I'm glad many people, as I say, are seeing reason and understanding this was wrong and evil, wicked. I don't care. I don't have many viewers, but if any of my viewers didn't like Charlie Kirk, it's not really about whether we liked or disliked him. It's a question of, he was there to speak his mind. If we can't do that, then where are we as a species? You're going to take out somebody who wants nothing more than to sit and engage in dialogue with you. Do you really want to be left with those who remain standing? We have to be unafraid to speak, to engage, discuss. Because if we are intimidated into silence, even if the assassin is found guilty, even if he's executed, he's won. R.I.P. Charlie Kirk. Thoughts and prayers to you and your family. I'm sorry in a way that I never got to meet him. As I say, it's not really about him or his opinion, what I agree or disagree with. It's where we go from here. Well, sorry as I started out by saying to make such a melancholy video, but I'm shaken, like I said. I'm not used to feeling like this. I hope I've made some sense, because I know that I've rambled a bit. If there's anything to be gained or learned by this, it's just spend some time in the real world. Whether you've got Charlie Kirk's ideas, whether you're an extreme left-winger, the way his assassin is supposed to have been. Charlie Kirk, whatever else you might think of him, didn't resort to violence in order to get his views out, so what's the matter with you? I will try to be more light-hearted in my next video, but I'm more shaken up than I thought I'd be. For the reason I think that the whole world has been affected by this, quite apart from the fact that the whole world has seen the footage, or read about it, is that, well, for good or ill, where America leads, the rest of the world tends to follow. America has no hate speech laws per se, rightly so. I said earlier that I'd like to see more freedom in this country, but the price you pay for that is that if someone isn't going to engage with you, and you can't engage with their ideas, and you won't hear their ideas, then the use of force is all necessary. Because if you genuinely think that person is a Nazi or a fascist or a terrorist, how else are you supposed to greet him except by force? Will the rest of us go in the same direction? Have we lost the ability Charlie Kirk had of bringing people who disagree with him up close and engaging with them? Or are we so far away we can't actually hear what our political and ideological opponents are saying? Has this set a dangerous precedent, both in America and the rest of the world? I hope not. But I'm very uneasy in my mind, and it probably goes to yet another reason as to why I'm feeling quite vulnerable. See you in my next video, and hopefully, to make up for lost time, the next video will be quite soon. Have a good night.